What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing on this fine Monday, sir?
Doing well, man. Grammy Monday.
Yeah.
The airing of grievances.
Yeah.
An annual holiday. How are you?
I mean, I feel like the airing of grievances is when they do the nominations, because you're just like, oh,
of course.
These people just they're very specific in terms of who they nominate and who they don't. Although, and we'll get into it, I think there were some good things to come out of last night, better than most years. So we'll get to it. But before we do, give us a follow on Twitter at NowstalgiaPod, and also go to youtube.com/NowstalgiaPod and subscribe, especially if you're watching already on YouTube. And lastly, go to soundcloud.com/NowstalgiaPod and download us on every platform and listen to the episode over and over and over, and then rate us 5-star on iTunes. So, Dave, as you said, Grammy Monday, Billie Eilish, picture behind you. I mean,
5 dubs, brah. And her brother got one.
Yeah, the Eilish family, Billie and Phineas, just crushing it in their first year, really up for nomination. I mean, why don't we start there? How are you feeling about Billie Eilish taking home 5 Grammys yesterday?
Right. Yeah, sweeping the big 4: Best New Artist, Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year. Only the second time that's been done since Christopher Cross in 1981. And by winning Album of the Year, she becomes the youngest winner at 18 years old, supplanting Taylor Swift when she won for Fearless. You know, honestly, that's an album that I had number 2 on my top 10 list. Check that out if you missed it. I like the album a lot. I think it's an important album that speaks to where we are now and where we are going in terms of mainstream pop music. And yeah, I think that was a really good choice. Did I expect it to do that big? No. But I'm kind of more happy that Billie got a ton of awards than, say, I don't know, Lizzo or Lil Nas X, which were also really inspired nominations, speaking to the good part of the Grammy nominations this year, recognizing the youth. But I think Billie was kind of the superior choice this year, and they actually nailed it, even if the crotchety Grammy people don't probably get most of this music, but it's all good.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a real focus specifically in the rap category and in like the major categories to really highlight people that are doing a lot of the good work, and also I think to highlight some of the more politically or maybe like culturally meaningful people. Like, for example, Nipsey Hussle featuring Roddy Ricch and Hit Boy, Racks in the Middle won Best Rap Performance. I don't know if in most years that would have, but I think with Nipsey's passing and the recognition of
it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a fine song. Best Rap Performance. I mean, what are we really like saying there?
Right.
Every rap performance can be.
The fact that they did that and Best Rap Song, which 21 Savage won, before the broadcast, it's fucking ridiculous. They used to do Best Rap Album before the broadcast too. It's like, this is the most popular genre in the country, no matter what the Recording Academy thinks about it. That's just the facts.
Right.
So you'd think you'd want those people on stage. But of course, they had their Nipsey moment planned, so I guess that's okay. Best Rap Song Performance went to Higher, the Khaled joint with Nipsey and John Legend. Not the biggest fan of that song, but I get it. It's okay.
Your boy and our boy Anderson .Paak in that Best R&B album. Shout out to him. But Tyler, I think, really is the person who came out of yesterday. One, I thought he had a great speech, great performance. He wins Best Rap Album, and then he had great comments afterwards. Taking some shots at the Academy, or not the Academy, at the Grammy Foundation.
Recording Academy.
Yeah, basically just saying, whenever a black person makes a genre bending album, they just kind of get put in rap because that's where black people get categorized by the Recording Academy. That's true. Which I thought was brave of him to say, especially, but he just won, so he can say that, But I think it's also, it's a fair critique because you look around and pretty much if you're black and you make an album that you're either R&B or you're rap, and that's it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's not a new thought either. Let's remember Hotline Bling.
Mm-hmm.
Drake won for Hotline Bling, and that was in Best Rap Song. And Drake himself was like, "That's not a rap song. I never said it was. We don't have to pretend it is. You could just put it in pop.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. That's okay too."
Yep.
And Tyler's comments about the urban word, which has always been a really weird classification. Like urban radio is a term as well. It's really, really, really strange way to talk about the music. And like as Tyler's alluding to, it's just kind of code for saying, here's the black music,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look at was it Album of the Year? Only one time in the past decade was it won by a non-white person. That was Bruno Mars for 24 Karat Magic. Kanye West never won any of the top prizes despite winning 21 Grammys. Like it's a systematic thing. And you look back to the big news that happened right before the ceremony with the head of the Grammys, Deborah Duggan, getting ousted 10 days before the show and then revealing herself that there's widespread voting inaccuracies and other various scandals within the Recording Academy, and not stuff that probably surprises too many people that are critical of the music industry, but just kind of seeing that put on stage while there's still work to be done. Let's put it that way.
Definitely a lot of work to be done. And, you can kind of see this divide growing within the, I don't know, within maybe the two segments of the Recording Academy, because a critique of the show last night was that it just felt like there was no flow and very polarized between younger people. You had Lizzo opening the show, Billie Eilish performing, Lil Nas X, all these people who are brand new artists and were huge this year and just kind of like burst onto the scene. And then you also had Aerosmith and Run DMC showing out. And, it's just this major contrast between the old and the new right now.
All these old school ballads and random tributes that are kind of hard to place. It's just, there's no identity, no through line for the ceremony. They're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and doing lots of things they've always done while being like, oh, well, we have Rosalia here and she's young and people like flamenco music and that's good for you, right? Okay, cool. Well, here's Steven Tyler. And like sometimes old stuff's fine. Like I thought the Osbournes were really funny as presenters.
Yeah.
That's great. But man, dude, I didn't watch the whole thing. In full disclosure, I tuned in and I was like, oh wait, there's still a lot more to this show.
Oh my God.
And like coming up, here's her. And I'm like, bro, I don't need to see her at fucking 10 p.m. I'm sorry. Let's focus on our priorities. And her's a talented person, but like, God, it dragged.
It definitely dragged. And, I actually kind of feel for their conundrum, right? Because who watches these award shows? It's not usually younger people. So to be kind of boasting like Billie Eilish is coming up, or here's BTS, or here's Rosalia, a lot of the old heads are like, I'm not going to tune into this. But then you have to throw something like Aerosmith out there to keep them coming because they're the ones who are watching this. So it's a problem. I don't really know how they solve it, and I'm glad I don't have to. But I think maybe in the future we'll see the Grammys moving more and more younger, but trying to maybe advertise the show differently. Right. I don't know.
I mean, there's also other things too, like FKA Twigs being there, but not being asked to perform. Like I know, like Magdalene, I believe, didn't make this Grammy cycle, if I remember right, but she's there. She could have sang.
She was asked to perform. She had to do a pole dance, which she killed, but she wasn't allowed to sing.
Shout out
with
the Cellophane
Usher.
video.
So
Lana didn't perform at all. There's just head scratching moments. Like obviously Lizzo being there, Lil Nas X being there, that makes sense. BTS being relegated to the remix version, the Soul Town Road. Okay, I guess. I think people would have been happy to see more of them. They're talented guys, but alas, that's what happens with the Grammys. And we'll see if anything starts to change. Let's not forget, not too long ago, Frank Ocean didn't even submit Blonde to the Grammys, right? No one shows up if they're not nominated. Taylor Swift even felt slighted that she didn't get the most possible honors for Lover, so she didn't go. Like, and you thinking about Diddy's comments at that gala a few days ago about the lack of respect for Black contributions to music. And I think the way Diddy put it is, if we don't support, no one's going to support. and it's fucking true. Like, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's always been the backlash against the Grammys, and specifically, I think black artists, taking a stand against them. You look at last night, some of the biggest winners or biggest people that were nominated. Beyonce wasn't there. Dave Chappelle wasn't there. There's major players within the musical field who are not supporting it. So it's it continues to be probably the biggest shit show in the awards shows,
Right.
By far, and the one that we should take the least seriously. Like the music you like and honor that, and who gives a shit who wins the Grammys in the end if you like the music.
Right.
So
yeah, the artists certainly don't.
why don't we move on to an artist that we were maybe not anticipating this, but I think excited to talk about after listening to their second album, J Hus with Big Conspiracy. Yeah, it was interesting because when you texted me, you were like, "Hey, give this a listen. Let's just talk about it." I was like, J Hus, I recognize that name. Obviously not as tuned into the rap world as you, so I figured you were probably very aware of him.
I'm usually behind on English guys, to be honest, but
well, definitely ahead of me on it, and gave him a listen. Really liked this album. I thought Big Conspiracy is a pleasurable listen from start to finish, but I was like, man, where do I know this guy from? And talking pre-show, featured on Ed Sheeran, featured on Skepta's album, but only 23 years old.
Yeah, that's wild. Second album, 23.
Crazy.
Yeah. Digging. That's the thing too. J Hus's name was hard to miss the past few years. I had just assumed, being someone who's still new to the UK scene, I assumed he was like an OG. I thought he was like Wilde. I didn't know he was this kid that was so hot already. I was kind of surprised looking into it, and listening to his first album, Common Sense. Like he has a tape, he has 2 EPs. Good, you see the promise there. But that first album, Common Sense, I really, really, really like. It it's funny. He's being credited with creating this new like blending of genres in the UK sound. I believe there's a lot of names for it. People are calling it Afro swing, kind of like Afro beats mixed with grime and dance hall. It's very, very interesting, and you can hear that on Big Conspiracy, but it was especially present on the first album, Common Sense, where he literally would just do various different sounds. Sometimes he would sound like Drake, sometimes he'd go hard like he was Skepta. It was really cool. And I think with Big Conspiracy, it took me by surprise just for a second when I first started listening to it, because it's a little mellower, which I guess makes sense because he spent a few months in jail in between albums, and you can tell that he just comes across as a little more wiser, a little more thoughtful and introspective, despite again still being only 23 years of age. And I think that was cool to see, and it is a good sign for the longevity of J Hus, that he has a pretty firm grasp on a lot of different sounds right now, but also has a lot working under the hood and has some things to say. So that was really cool to hear, even if it took me by surprise initially. What did you think, though?
Well, it's funny to hear you talk about how he's kind of created this new like Afro swing sound, because I think that's actually a great way to kind of embody it. I was gonna say that like dance hall part didn't come through for me until like the very end of the album, which I actually think is where I was enjoying it the most, was at the back like third. Not to say anything before that was bad, but I would have guessed, if he wasn't British, he didn't have a British accent, that this would have been a guy that came out of Chicago, because you hear a lot of like jazz infused, like more mellow songs at the beginning of the album, and like specifically, songs like Triumph or Repeat with Coffee. I think those are just like totally like smooth, like songs that he flows beautifully over, and just like a real pleasure to listen to. And I think it's great. And then you get to something like Love, Peace, and Prosperity, which you hear a lot more of that, like that dance hall feel to it. You feel like you're listening to an island song. I was really impressed. I thought he made a really good album for a second album. And, I'm trying to think, back to like, I don't even remember the song he was on with Ed Sheeran. I remember that I saw the name on the track list. That whole album is so like,
yeah.
Did I ever put any of that into my memory? Probably.
Ideally not.
Yeah. But
yeah, it was with Feels, Young Thug and J Hus and Ed Sheeran.
Okay.
Two-thirds English.
You know, I don't remember that song, but I feel like he's obviously getting his name out there, and it feels like he's primed for a big career. So, what songs were like the standouts to you? What did you like gravitate towards?
Yeah, I liked some of those early singles. I think for this, "No Denying" and "Must Be" towards the
Yeah,
end,
Must Be was great.
and then the last track, "Deeper Than Rap," as well. That was pretty cool. But like you mentioned, Repeat. Play with Burna Boy. He had Burna Boy in the last album too, which is I think notable because Burna had fully broken out at that point yet. And then Fortune Teller as well. I liked. But yeah, I mean, like the shit's fucking smooth, man.
Yeah.
And then when he gets thoughtful about both his personal life and then just how he feels like he's part of like a larger police state in a sense in London, you know, it's there actually is a lot there. So yeah, I think it's fucking awesome. And
yeah,
I'm just really into it now. I've been running back the first album a lot lately. I think Common Sense really like has a lot more like bangers in a sense, which is cool because again they're like genre bending bangers. But Big Conspiracy, there's some thoughtful tunes here.
It definitely strikes me as an early front runner for like surprise album of the year, something similar to Lil Sims last year, where just kind of like came out and we were like, oh shit, this actually goes. So that British rap scene, man.
Get some Brit Awards love down the line. We'll see.
Any last thoughts on this before we move on?
Oh yeah. Funny enough, this album leaked like a week ago. Like legitimately leaked. That's not something that like happens anymore. Like it's not like a news item. And I didn't notice it, of course, because I'm just like no one's really plugged into that anymore. Like it's like people were into the snippet gang for unreleased stuff, but when an album's coming, we just kind of let the release date happen now, right? But funny enough, he has such a dedicated fan base. They all like attacked people on social media that were sharing the links, and like no one was gonna buy bootleg copies. It's kind of cool to see that people are like, oh yeah, well we'll wait the extra few days because then we don't have to pay. But I still appreciate the principle.
Yeah. Oh man. I respect the fans respecting the artists on that. You know, shout out to J Hus and his crew. We're gonna stay British though. Moving on to Sex Education.
A
show whose first season made it onto my top 10 list, and you should go check out that best of 2019 top 10 list for TV, as well as movies and music and everything else we talked about. Created by Laurie Nunn. I mean, when we talked about it, and it came close to making your end of year list too last year. I think what we liked about it was a British teen drama that touched on a lot of current issues of identity and diversity in a way that was thoughtful and kind of kept its playfulness and had a good balance between that like humor and the serious aspect of it. And we were pretty impressed. Do you feel like season 2 brought more of the same? Did it level up? Where are you at with season 2?
Yeah. And again, because it came out of nowhere, like a few Netflix shows do every year, that kind of adds to the admiration because you just go in with no expectations. This time, obviously, knowing they have expectations, knowing that by all accounts it was a big hit. Apparently, Netflix said 40 million people watched season 1 in the first month. Who the fuck knows what that means? They change what that means all the time. But anyway, people watch, people like the show. You can see on social media the whole cast of characters has gone pretty famous. Like people are into this show. But yeah, going into season 2, or we're watching season 2. I wouldn't say it leveled up in a sense, but it didn't let me down. It still kind of gave me what I want. I think it was interesting because it did things differently by changing up some of the core dynamics on the show, namely like the whole clinic aspect of Otis giving advice more or less was not part of this season, and having his mom be more directly involved in everyone else's storylines by being in the school, and then kind of just making the story, I think, just more broader, you know, bringing in the parents, bringing in the teachers, just more B plots was cool. And I still really enjoyed it. What did you think?
I actually think I liked this season more than season 1. What I think I liked more, season 1, there's a part in the middle where Eric and Otis, the main friendship that you're following.
Right.
They have a falling out, they get mad at each other, and they don't really like speak for like 2 or 3 episodes. And I found that to be so frustrating in season 1, because I felt like I just wanted them to communicate, I wanted them to talk it out. And I felt like that took away some of like the pleasure of the show for me. And season 2, while having some conflict between them, they resolve it pretty quickly. And they kind of keep that relationship at the heart of the show, and they're kind of like the support as they each go on their own adventures and discovering themselves and the relationships that they find themselves in. And I think they balance the drama of the season a little bit better than maybe they did last season.
Sure.
With some of the humor. I mean, there's still some things about the show that I think could be improved. Like, out of nowhere, the play at the end is a musical that's so weird and like out there, and you don't really get that like delivered to you until the last episode. But
Right.
I still thought I thought they made this a lot more of a fun watch this season than maybe they did in season 1, which is hard to do because it was a fun watch in season 1. I also thought they introduced and built out a lot of the characters a little bit better in this season.
Definitely.
And like, you get someone like Viv, who kind of comes into the season
Mhm.
unknown and leaves as probably one of my favorites. So
Yeah, she was brand new this season, right?
yeah, as far as I remember.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I like Viv a lot, and along those lines, Jackson, making him a little more multi-layered, even if through the thread he's on, it might be familiar and easy to comprehend. It's still cool to see that be layered more. You know, it was interesting too, because Maeve is largely separated from the rest of the gang for large swaths of this season, but in its place, you have Maeve dealing with lots of important personal stories, and I think touching on some deeper stuff. And because Emma Mackey is such a talented performer, she really carries those scenes well. So it was still good. But I'm trying to think. Like, I think my favorite aspect overall was probably just having Eric get into a relationship with somebody else and have
Raheem.
more going on. Raheem cutting everyone with that strong jaw. You know, the Dance Dance Revolution scene was really cool. Everything with the rail yard, I thought was kind of funny. I didn't expect it to be a recurring motif the way it was, especially at the end when they have like a Breakfast Club-esque, girl power scene.
Yeah.
And in a sense, there's a Me Too storyline here in a certain sense as well. I think that's handled pretty deftly as well. But ultimately, there's a lot of tropey stuff, right? There's lots of triangles, lots of love triangles,
right,
lots of cliches. But it's okay, because I think because you like all these performers and you like all these characters, and as you said, the ensemble's being fleshed out more, it's just such a fun time to hang at that school and with those people that you don't mind if some of the storylines are a little, familiar.
Yeah. In watching and talking with some people that watched it, something that came up a lot was this reminded me a lot of Euphoria, this season. And I think where it kind of lands for me in terms of like the current high school dramas is Euphoria is like all the way over at this extreme, and Sex Education, I feel like, falls a little bit like a step or two back from that extreme, because it really is a lot more palatable. Euphoria can be so explicit, so graphic. People are on so many drugs there. The parties are so extreme and so lavish. I mean, even the party they have here is ridiculous, and like Otis is, but like at the after effects of it and like the things that happen feel so much more like grounded in a way. I don't know. I think Sex Education for me, even though it doesn't have the style level of Euphoria, I still think it hits better for me just because I find it a lot more pleasurable to watch episode to episode.
Right.
I also thought, you kind of touched on like Amy Gibbs and her storyline of, the what happens to her on the bus and how that's handled. I thought that was great. I thought talking about asexuality and all the different types of sexuality was handled really well. And kind of just the whole storyline with Gillian Anderson's Dr. Milburn kind of coming into the school and, giving advice, and then kind of finding out that Otis was giving advice, and how that all kind of came into a crescendo at the end of the season at the play. I thought that was all done really well and kind of handled with seriousness and humor. I'm just really impressed by the season. I think they seem to have found their stride. They know what the show is. They know what they want it to be. And there's so much for them to continue exploring. I mean, we're obviously going to get a lot more of Adam next season as he's kind of coming into his own. And I'm sure his relationship with his dad's going to be at the center of it.
He was my least favorite part of this season, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah, I think in a sense we were spinning its wheels, but I was happy where it ended with Eric actually like telling him off after Otis, I think, actually had one of his more helpful pieces of advice given when he's like, this guy treated you horribly for so long. This is dumb. Yeah. That was cool. That was good, you know? Yep. So I think hopefully Adam's getting to a better place just because he was like the silent self-loathing type. It's just not like the best hang. Mm-hmm. And unlike, say, Jacob Elordi in Euphoria, who is in a similar situation, Adam doesn't really do a whole lot to impact the plot for most of it. So I think that the presence is not as strong, but we're getting there. They know what they have in this, as you said. Netflix hasn't renewed it for season 3 yet. They will. Last time it took them like a month, so that's going to happen. Also, shout out the actor who plays Sweet Robin Aaron from Game of Thrones. He's the guy with the Rubik's Cube in this season. Total dork.
Yeah, I hate that guy. But you know who I want to give a shout out to is Lily, played by Tanya Reynolds.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Her character, I think this season made the biggest leap for me from the first season. Jackson obviously is up there too, because I didn't really like him much in the first season. I think they really do a good job of building him out in this season. But Lily being this like weirdo alien sex writing person,
octopus,
getting not only a relationship with another woman, but getting to write this play, direct this play, getting a lot of the like funny lines, and also kind of giving some sage advice. They really gave her some room. So seems like the biggest riser in my book.
Right. One last shout out to they use Mystery of Love from Sufjan Stevens from Call Me by Your Name, which is just a cheat code for romantic montage scenes, and a smart choice. And I was happy to see that.
When that came on, I was like, Call Me by My Name. Like, I know this song. Also, they use a cover of an LCD song over and over, which I was
okay.
very excited
Hell
about. I can change. So some good music choices as well. Definitely a show I recommend checking out if you haven't. Early runner to be on my top 10 list of the year. We're going to stay British, bruv.
Yes,
we're going to talk about
Wagwan.
We're going to talk about The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie's newest film, starring Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Hugh Grant, Jeremy Strong being a huge fucking weirdo,
Henry Golding, Michelle Dockery,
and Colin Farrell bringing up the rear.
Coach.
Coach is a great character, man. So it's funny because last time we talked about Guy Ritchie was just last year with his Aladdin live action remake. And Dave, how did you feel about that?
Might be one of my favorites of the live action remakes. Not that says a whole lot. I liked it more than the Lion King remake. I'll tell you that. I liked it more than Dumbo. There's some interesting parts too. I thought Mena Massoud was a really winning piece of casting as live action Aladdin. I liked Will Smith's turn as the genie as well. Ultimately, it's tough to get too much of a feel of Guy Ritchie's sensibilities directing that movie because it's part of the Disney machine. It's an adaptation, but yeah, I think ultimately it's while it made $1.1 billion, no one looks on it too fondly apart from children.
No. And the thing is, Guy Ritchie has such a stout resume, right? Obviously created Snatch. I'm blanking on other films.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Those are his first two movies. Did the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Right, the Sherlock Holmes movies. That's what I was trying to think of. He has such a distinct style that's so pleasurable and just fun to watch. And though Aladdin might have been the best of the remakes, still felt like, why do we need these remakes? They're really necessary. Right. So to have him come back just less than a year later and drop what really feels like a classic Guy Ritchie film was just great to see. And I left the theater pretty satisfied and overall very happy with what I watched. How did you feel leaving The Gentleman?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not top tier Ritchie. This is not Lock, Stock. It's not Snatch. It doesn't have the film making panache that Ritchie kind of burst on the scene with the turn of the 2000. But it still has that, that snappy, witty dialogue that we associate with him, and just a memorable cast of characters and winning casting. So it has all that DNA of Guy Ritchie doing original films, even if I have it a peg below his top tier stuff. But yeah, I think it's really fun, and even there's some issues, but I was satisfied as well.
So why don't we start with just kind of breaking down the main characters of the movie? So Matthew McConaughey playing Mickey, running this underground marijuana operation that's made him this millionaire. He's kind of like it's kind of like these different gangs, right? He's like the American in the gang, and there's like the Chinese gang. We don't really get introduced to too much of like the British like head of whatever gang there is out there. And Charlie Hunnam's his right hand man, Raymond, who's kind of being what do you want to say, like blackmailed or extorted by Hugh Grant's
Private Eye,
so that he doesn't bring this to like the press. I don't know. It's a bit of like a convoluted plot, I think, a little bit, but basically where the conflict comes is Mickey's trying to sell his operation to Jeremy Strong, kind of foreseeing that the marijuana game is going to need someone with a little bit less blood on their hands, and Jeremy Strong is that person.
Right.
And Henry Golding's trying to also buy Mickey's operation, which he doesn't want to do. And you have Hugh Grant, who's in the middle of this, trying to extort whatever money he can for it. How did you? I mean, did you feel like the plot was good, made sense, coherent?
Yeah, I think the plot actually is pretty simple once you watch the movie and understand it, and the simple framing device of having Grant narrate to Hunnam and the audience what's happened it's told out of order with flashbacks and stuff. I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was amusing, and I think it keeps your attention. But yeah, I mean, it's not too crazy. Again, like his other stuff, there's not really big twists beyond like the did he die in the beginning?
Right.
Turns out no, he didn't. About that, Other than that, nothing's that surprising.
Yeah. No, not really. I mean, I think there's a couple of moments where things kind of fall into place, right? Like the like Coach and his guys, and how they kind of just happen to know like Mickey's being abducted by these Russian people, and that kind of comes in at the end out of nowhere a bit, like, oh, this Russian guy really is like the big bad of all of it.
Yeah.
And they're able
to kill his son.
Yeah. It's a bit of like a twist, I guess, at the end, out of nowhere. I also felt like, and this is going to be like a weird thing and we can come back around to his character, Henry Golding's character felt like he goes from being this like semi-menacing but kind of like overall just like a middleman to all of a sudden being like ready to just like rape his wife like at the drop of a hat. And I was like, where the hell is this coming from? Like that felt very like out of nowhere.
That definitely felt hamstrung in. But yeah, I mean, but like going in or as it's progressing, you're like, all right, Dry is the opportunistic rising in the ranks gangster. We understand what that means. And then he gets a like bloodlust, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, the just hamstringing in the rape kind of out of nowhere, didn't really add anything.
No.
Kind of strange. Also, there's it definitely plays fast and loose with stereotypes and racial epithets, right? It's pretty crass. I don't know, regressive movie, I guess. It's not openly spewing any bigotry, but it's just kind of playing with that stuff. And I guess the Asian characters are handled a little stereotypically. I think they say a license to kill at one point, which is, a groaner for sure.
How did you feel about Jeremy Strong's character?
Probably my least favorite of the bunch. It's kind of a weird performance. The fashion was, I liked his fits, but yeah, he's doing a weird accent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wasn't really exactly sure what he was going for in a lot of the movie. And I agree. Probably my least favorite character. I also feel like even though he's kind of like under or trying to undermine this whole operation, it makes a lot of sense, like why he's doing it and driving the price down of the operation. Just like the way he went out, just kind of like a bitch at the end. I was like, man, like Mickey is just overall supposed to be this like, I'm gonna get the upper hand no matter what all the time type of person. And I wish they'd been a bit more formidable there at the end. Sure. But who I loved in this movie was Charlie Hunnam. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he's just kind of playing it straight and playing off of Grant, who is just being really flamboyant and really going for it. Yeah, really good presence. Liked Hunnam there. Again, Hunnam's a guy who's has ups and downs as a leading man post Sons of Anarchy. But yeah, I think this is kind of him doing what he does best, just kind of being kind of dashing, being a little debonair when they chase down those kids who see the window death. I really like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his movies recently: Triple Frontier,
yep,
King Arthur, Lost City of Z. I mean, a true up and down.
King Arthur was Ritchie too. Let's not forget.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a through line to like what movies he really hits in and what he doesn't. Obviously, I think most people would know him from like Sons of Anarchy, but probably the movie I like him in most is Green Street Hooligans, and in that he plays this like charming, kind of menacing, soccer hooligan. This he gets to just be charming again. I think people should just let him be charming more often. I think when he gets kind of shoehorned into these like tough guy scenarios, maybe he's not able to like let as much of that out. Like Triple Frontier, I actually forgot he was in that. Totally forgot.
He's just muscular guy too.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, seeing Colin Farrell in basically anything is enjoyable. He's just so awesome. But man, I really like that music video they shot in the underground compound. And then I looked it up. That guy, Bugsy Malone, is actually a British grime artist. He's a real rapper. And I was like, I was in the movie. I was like, this song fucking rules. Can we release this? And this song is not released yet. I want to hear that song again. That was a banger.
Yeah, definitely tune into our Nowstalgia Best of 2020 because I think that will be on there when it drops. Because I also was like, this is actually a pretty good music video. It looks fucking awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned Colin Farrell. I think he gets to be very Colin Farrell, but within like certain parameters, which I think rein him in well. When he gets to go full Colin Farrell, it doesn't always work out, but kind of being this more like subdued, like I'm just doing what I have to do to like be an honorable person. It like really seemed to like fit him for this. So really enjoyed him in this movie as well. And Grant, you already mentioned being, extremely flamboyant and provocative.
Saying the C word 100 times.
Yeah. But isn't it nice to kind of see him in the second part or second or third act of his career, really start to just like pick weird roles and like,
not be rom-com guy.
Yeah. Like I feel like he's kind of always had this, but just kind of got roped into like handsome, but not overly handsome British guy,
Yep. Absolutely. What'd you think of the Miramax logo? That definitely popped up in the movie. I was like, damn, interesting that they kept that in. Like this movie, STX bought this movie from Miramax, which is obviously many since removed from the Weinstein connections, but it's kind of interesting to see kind of a relic of the film industry actually featured literally in the movie. Like they actually go to Miramax in the story at the end,
Yeah, I was like a bit taken back by it, but I was like, it's one of those things. I didn't have too many notes on that. What else stood out to you about the movie? What else did you really like?
No, I think that's it. It's just, it's just kind of that fun, quick moving nature of Guy, even if it's not his most intelligent or impressive from a filmmaking standpoint. It's still, I think, a good time. It's kind of playing to, I guess, the Ritchie base. This is a movie that, you look at the audience breakdown for the box office, it's overwhelmingly male. It's overwhelmingly adult. It's not probably the most inviting story. I guess it's kind of hard to sell too, because it's just really such a foul-mouthed English gangsters fucking killing each other and looking good doing it. It's simple, but it's enjoyable. especially for a January movie. I'm very satisfied.
If there's one critique of it, it's probably that there's really only one female in the movie. She is a badass.
She is,
but also playing just a supporting role to Mickey.
Still playing a wife.
We saw McConaughey in Serenity last January. Definitely a step up for January movies for him. Definitely. How did you feel about him in the movie?
He's just doing his normal thing, He's like, those are juvenile numbers, man. We got to get these marijuana sales up. He's just doing what he's done the last 5 years. He's in the Lincoln commercial. He's in Wolf of Wall Street. It's the same shit.
Yeah. I got it.
The silverback, whatever.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed when he was like, it's my vice, but I don't partake. I literally laughed out loud in the theater. I was like, you're known for getting high constantly. How now in this movie you're not partaking? Just that was a great little throwaway line. I think overall, I'm very satisfied with this for a January movie, and it seems like this might be the most polarizing January I can remember, because we have a couple of movies that really hit. This movie seems to be a fairly decent hit. We have Bad Boys
big hit,
hit, and then we have movies that are getting panned as some maybe the worst January releases we've ever seen. Something like The Turning, Doolittle,
F cinema score for The Turning,
just
Doolittle by all accounts horrendous. Haven't seen it.
So it's setting up to be a very interesting year post a very big IP heavy 2019. Right. So we'll keep our eyes on that, and especially with what is Con going on right now. What's the film festival that's going on right now?
Sundance, bro.
Sundance. Come on. Sorry, I got totally brain fart. But with Sundance, we're gonna start hearing about the better movies we should be hearing about this year, most likely. So hopefully picking up soon, but. Dave, Guy Ritchie probably not going to get nominated for an Oscar for this. We're talking Oscars, though, and you saw Les Mis. So tell me about this. Tell me about this movie. I mean, I think I've seen the play a couple of times. This is another remake of with Russell Crowe, and not that.
No, it's not that. You can't hear the people sing. It's a little different. It's called Les Misérables. It's a movie from last year. It's the French. It was nominated for Best International Film. It was the French selection, which was notable because the France Film Board selected Les Misérables over Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which has been widely celebrated and championed. So it's actually kind of interesting that they pick something else from their country, which kind of speaks to their output. But yeah, it's called Les Misérables because it's set in the Paris suburb called Montreuil, which is where Victor Hugo wrote Les Misérables in real life. And it's a movie that I really, really liked. Honestly, I didn't know really anything about it. I hadn't seen a trailer, just knew it was nominated and went and saw it last week. And honestly, it really blew me away just because it's a really, I think, impressive piece of visceral day in the life storytelling. It's about this cop played by Damien Bernard, who's a French character actor. He's probably the most notable actor in the movie. Everyone else doesn't even have Wikipedias for the most part. And he's he's new to Paris, and he's new to this beat. And he joins two other police officers in the anti-crime brigade, I think is what it was called. And it's their job just to keep the streets clean in this hood, outside Paris. That's really all it is. And because it's a day in the life story, as you can imagine, we're about to see one of the worst days, right? And he soon learns, he's kind of like our audience avatar. We soon learn that the cops he's working with regularly overstep their bounds and intimidate people and do illegal searches and don't respect people's rights and all that stuff. And they claim they're doing it so they get respect, but they're really just kind of menacing the neighborhood and stuff. And as we're going through the neighborhood, we're learning about all these dynamics. And director, Laj Lai, is from this area. So you can kind of tell that he co-wrote the screenplay too. He's making this story from experience. And there's a lot of African immigrants in this neighborhood. They're one part of it. There's the Muslim Brotherhood, who are very other distinct part of it. And there's these gypsy characters that kind of have the circus. They're in town. There's all these different sides, right? And kind of like there's a genesis that happens as the plot kind of takes off, and there's these children in the story that get on the cause the ire of the police, whether justly or not. And there's an exciting incident that kind of makes the neighborhood spoil out of control. And I don't want to spoil what happens, but it's based off of, or I guess inspired by some police riots that happened in 2005 in Paris. And I just really liked that this movie kind of built this really thrilling conclusion and just kind of communicates this, it's almost like this operatic pulse to this neighborhood and all these different people, young and old, in it. And seeing that through the eyes of police it was interesting to see. And this is a movie that Amazon is doing the U.S. distribution, so as you know, that means nobody has seen it. It was only in 69 theaters as of last week. It's made like 207,000 here in the States. So no one knows anything about this movie, obviously, but it was cool because, again, like the plot is ultimately pretty procedural. We're just kind of going through this day in the life. We're not getting too far into the hood of any of our characters, whether it's the police or the people in the neighborhood, but because it's really, I think, really visceral and moves at a really quick pace and really in your face, there's a special energy to it, to me. So I really liked it. I put it in my top 15 on the list for last year.
The way you started talking about it, it almost sounded a bit like Training Day, a little bit like, these like crooked cops, sure, and this new guy who kind of uncovers all of it, but sounds like it has like a bit of a grander, like, cultural like undertone to it. Sounds very interesting. What's the director's name?
Laj Lai. She was an actress. This is her debut feature. And this actually, she won the jury prize at Cannes last year for this. So definitely put some people, make some more people pay attention. But because I think, just a movie that maybe only a certain amount of people could make, and when you make a movie about the problems with your own neighborhood, there's kind of a special touch to that. I think there's a special energy to the way they tell this story, even if it's not that different from, I guess, Do the Right Thing, but there's a special touch to it. So I would recommend this. It'll, I assume, eventually get on Amazon here in the States, probably in a few months. So keep an eye out for it.
It's too bad it's going up against Parasite this year. Pretty much
definitely
no
losing.
However, one of the things we wanted to talk about are categories that we believe should be added to the Oscars, or just to kind of like talk about things maybe the Oscars is not going to cover.
Correct.
So one of the things we wanted to throw out there was best first film, best debut film. And, you just mentioned Les Misérables. I definitely think Laid Lie would be nominated for this. And the Directors Guild does have this category.
Yep.
So
only since 2015, it's actually pretty new.
So it's fairly new.
I respect it. I like it.
And I think we're obviously going to throw out many of the people who were nominated for that. But do you have anyone that comes to mind that you would want to throw out for this category?
You mean people that aren't on the DGA list?
Or just in general, people that like come to mind for you for debut film that really caught you this past year?
Yeah. So apart from Les Mis, which I guess is the highest ranked on everything I have here, Olivia Wilde for Booksmart,
yes,
comes to mind. A little different because she was already well established in Hollywood as a actor, but I think that one's still a notable one. That's a movie I think fucking rules. That's cool. Also, I actually just watched this. It's called I Lost My Body. It's this French animated movie on Netflix. It's nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. That's directed by this guy named Jeremy Clapton, and this is his first movie. So that one definitely stood out to me. That was a really, really thoughtful, slow-moving, almost atmospheric, made-for-adults animated movie. Didn't really know what I was getting into, but that's cool. That's some cool shit right there. What comes to your mind?
Well, Olivia Wilde was the first one that came to mind for me. But Joe Talbot for the last Black Man in San Francisco is probably
That's
the
the
one
one.
that I would give this to. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it in theaters, so my experience is a bit marred. It's not the same seeing it at home, but this
Go
is
watch it on
available.
Prime if you
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
is available on Amazon Prime, as Dave just said, and man, it's incredibly moving. And you talked about like a slower paced film. This really feels just like it's putting you in a place, and um, the way he frames things, the lighting in this, especially when they're inside of the home, and
Sure.
like the way the light comes through the windows, and it's like very like dusty and musty in there, but just
Mhm.
really gives a sense of like place and feel. And
Yeah.
even leading up to that like play at the end that the friend does. I'm forgetting the friend's name, but
Jonathan Majors is the director.
um,
I forget the name.
yeah, just an absolute. I thought it was a masterpiece for an indie film, and I was really impressed with him. So I would give this to Joe Talbot. But anyone else you want to give a shout out to, or
Yeah.
maybe
Also, one last thing on Last Black Man in San Francisco. That opening montage
yeah,
is just, in a sense, you kind of get impressed with this being that Joe Talbot's first film. We talked about this with the review, but like he's a guy who has been well known in the Bay filmmaking community for some time, even if this is his first feature film. But you just see the talent right there, both like the eye for like framing and like like storytelling in montage, but like just the way he can kind of communicate emotion without dialogue from the get-go is really special. And he's definitely someone who I think everyone just wants to see what's he going to do next, now that we know he's going to be given a bigger budget for whatever he wants to do by somebody, right? So
yeah.
he's really
those
exciting.
skateboarding scenes too, especially after the main character gets angry and he's like skateboarding and then he biffs it. Just like the way it's shot. First of all, with like the wide going like down the big hill and like the way it kind of like zooms in on it, but then like the close up and then he eats it. It's like it really adds like a visceral sense to it without being like violent in a particular way. It's pretty great. But yeah, anyone else you want to shout out for this category?
I also really liked Arctic from Joe Penna. That's his first movie. That's this movie that has very little dialogue. It's with Mads Mikkelsen, who gets stranded in the Arctic when his plane crashes and has to survive. Came out at the beginning of the year. I watched it on a plane. Really cool movie. I mean, Mads carries it, and he does it again without speaking a whole lot. But I really like that one. Also, funny enough, did you know Toy Story 4 is directed by a first-time director, Josh Cooley, who's a veteran animator at Pixar? That was actually his first time directing. So the asterisk on that one, but it technically counts.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, should I throw that out there? But it's so pre-packaged at this point, and they have such a team around it. It's like it feels wrong. But no, I did see that. You didn't want to give a shout out to like the people that made the Peanut Butter Falcon or Honey Boy or anything like that? I thought you enjoyed those.
Oh yeah, no. Alma Harrell, Honey Boy. She's the one who won the DJ actually this year. Her direction on Honey Boy, I think, stands out just because she kind of communicates flashbacks and the present day pretty well. And that's definitely a moody movie. I like that. Melina Matsoukas was nominated for Queen and Slim. She's an accomplished music video director. This is her first feature. I like the movie, don't love the movie, but her sense of style is very evident. Definitely talented. The Peanut Butter Falcon guys, was it Tyler Nilsson and Michael Schuston?
Michael Schwartz.
Yeah, hearing sucks. That's a movie that really came out of nowhere. Peanut Butter Falcon made over $20 million, and like I also watched that recently after missing it in theaters, and I give more of that movie's credit to was it Michael Gastigan is his name, and Shia LaBeouf, just because their chemistry and their acting really stands out, but. Definitely impressive for a first feature just because it really kind of came out of nowhere. And also shout out Maddie Diop from Senegal for Atlantics. That was kind of a surprise omission from Best International Film this year. That's also quite an impressive movie. I'd recommend you go in knowing as little about the story as possible, and it should be an effective watch. It's on Netflix right now. Also, I didn't see this, but The Standoff at Sparrow Creek people like.
Yes.
Henry Dunham directed that first time.
I didn't realize that was his first movie. That was a really good movie, actually.
Yeah, I guess I got to watch that. And then also The Mustang, directed by this woman, this French woman, Laure de Clement. Well, people really like that. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, it seems to be a lot of first time features this year. And if you look back at the DGA category in the first few years, 2015, Alex Garland won for Ex Machina, awesome choice. 2016, Garth Davis won for Lion. That was a movie that got a lot of Oscar nominations. 2017, of course, Jordan Peele wins for Get Out. And then and Taylor Sheridan was nominated for Wind River that year also. And then 2018, Bo Burnham for Eighth Grade beats out Bradley Cooper and Boots Riley, and Ari Aster wasn't even nominated. So I think it's a cool. The reason it should be an Oscars because again, it's a cool piece of film history that is worth honoring, and it's just it's part of the story, like feature film debuts, and sometimes they're not as big, right? Like Damien Chazelle's first movie before Whiplash didn't turn a lot of heads, probably wouldn't have gotten recognized with this, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes you have shit that blows people away, like a Get Out, right? So I think it's just part of the story. We should have this category.
No, I completely agree. And, the Oscars are nothing else. It's just another advertisement for the movies. So you should be, I think they should be putting these categories out there because you want people to be tuning in saying, this person or that person. Everybody likes to get in the ground for it. Everybody likes the band when they're just starting up, not after the third or fourth album. So,
yep.
We also want to talk breakthrough our actor, and then we're also going to do stunt, best stunts at the end. But breakthrough actor. So they have this at the Gothams. I'm just going to read through the 5 people that were nominated. Then why don't we throw out people that we think maybe should have been in here as well. So we had Taylor Russell as Emily Williams in Waves, Julia Fox as Julia Holmes in Uncut Gems, Aisling Franciosi as Claire Carroll in Nightingale, Chris Galost as Vic in Give Me Liberty, and Noah Jupe as young Otis Lort in Honey Boy. I think there's also one more. No, sorry. I was incorrect on that. That was someone I added, so I didn't have a clear delineation here. Out of all those, I think I've only seen Julia Fox. So I had a couple of people I wanted to include, but I'll give you the floor first. Anyone that stands out to you as maybe should have been included in that?
I thought Jonathan Majors was nominated.
Oh, maybe he was then. That's what I was going to say. So
yeah, for Jonathan Last Black Man in San Francisco. Him and Julia Fox are my top 2. Both coming out of nowhere in different stories. Julia Fox, total ingenue from the Safdies, really kind of perfect piece of casting, and definitely brought a really important, I think, piece of energy to Uncut Gems and really helps make that movie shine. And then Jonathan Majors shows up in his buddy's film and is like, oh shit, yeah, this guy's a fucking thespian. Like that was great, So he should be cast all the time, and we should get that soon,
Yep.
But yeah, I think there's some other good choices that weren't in the Gotham's field. It's kind of a deep year.
So one person I wanted to shout out was Divine Joy Randolph from Dolomite Is My Name, playing Lady Reed. She was fantastic.
Definitely.
And as one of like the few female parts in that movie, I think she really stands out and really holds her own against some legendary actors in that movie. So she was one. And then also Honor Swinton Byrne as Julie in The Souvenir. I felt like her not being nominated at the Gothams, just like, how was she overlooked? I thought she was fantastic.
I'm not familiar with Give Me Liberty. It's a comedy film apparently, but ultimately it's a bit of a tough year. Other people that were nominated, think of Julia Butters from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yes, that's we're honoring a young kid, but I mean, Brooklyn Prince was nominated for Florida Project a few years ago, so I guess it's okay. Yeah, I mean, Julia Butters, we just assume she's going to be really, really good in the future when she's not 10 years old anymore. So the fact that she's already really good at 10, I think is a good start at the very least. So shout out her. Best piece of acting we've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. And they also nominated the girl from 8th grade. I'm forgetting her name right now. But
Elsie Fisher.
Yeah, Elsie Fisher was also nominated. So I'm surprised she didn't get the nom as well. Good call. What about Zhao Shuzhen?
Hell yeah.
As Nai in The Farewell. The Farewell, just the fact he got so under-nominated is so disappointing.
Got no noms for the Oscars.
Completely. But I thought she was great and would probably be the oldest breakout star on this list.
Right. Yeah, and it's not like she just started acting. It's just this is her breakout in the Western world. So
Right.
it depends how you think about it too. Someone like Caitlin Dever in Booksmart has been in a lot of stuff the past few years, but that was her first like lead or co-lead role. Same for Paul Walter Hauser and Richard Jewell, who not only was his first lead role, but obviously his best performance to date. So kind of, I guess it depends how you think about it. And you mentioned Noah Jupe. You actually have seen him because he was also in Ford versus Ferrari as
the
Christian
son
Bale's son.
Yes. Pretty good in that.
And like, would Ana de Armas count in Knives Out? Because again, she's been in a lot of stuff, but that's the first time she had a lot of lines in anything people saw. So maybe she's a little too experienced at this point. But
well, so I had the same question about Florence Pugh for Midsommar, right? Because
she's been a lead before though with Lady Macbeth, so I wonder.
Yeah, but this felt like Midsommar was when people were like, "Damn, Florence Pugh."
Well, and this is funny because the analog for this is like Best New Artist at the Grammys, and Best New Artist at the Grammys, at least in the past, is famous for awarding people after they've released multiple albums, like Bon Iver at the turn of the decade. You know, so it's like Florence Pugh. It's like, let's say like a year from now she gets this award, and it's like, oh yeah, shout out Florence Pugh for the breakthrough, and it's like, well yeah, but she's been in like 5 movies already in high profile parts. Does this still count?
Right. Well, it's kind of like even Lizzo this past year, like had like what 2 albums before this past one, and they're like, oh, this breakout star. Like,
good point.
So who would you pick? Who would be your breakout star from this year?
I would go with Jonathan Majors. I think he was the best talent I've seen. I liked a lot of these people. Taylor Russell, you mentioned she was recognized for Waves. She's really strong in Waves. I also want to shout out her co-star in that, Kelvin Harrison Jr., who's also in Loose. It's funny, he was actually nominated for this award 2 years ago with It Comes at Night, the Waves director's first movie, or most previous movie. But for me, he kind of jumped on the screen this year. But it's actually funny that he was already recognized. But if you look back at the Gotham's history with this award, they've given it to a lot of strong contenders. 2013, Michael B. Jordan, Fruitvale. 2014, Tessa Thompson, Dear White People. 2017, Timothy Chalamet. Lucas Hedges was nominated for this.
For Call Me By Your Name?
Yep, Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name. Yep.
Hell yeah.
And then obviously you mentioned Elsie Fisher in 2018. Also people that weren't even nominated, like 2017, I think of like Barry Keoghan with Killing of Sacred Deer, obviously really in demand now. Haley Richardson in Columbus. This is, I think, again, an important category. It's like the Rookie of the Year award in sports. Like, why not have this? We like minting new stars, and even if it's like Best New Artist, and once in a while we pick Meghan Trainor, I think it's still okay because again, it's part of the story. It should be part of the record. It's you want to mint the new, and even sometimes say Zhao Shuzhen gets nominated. Yes, she's not a new person to mint in the traditional sense, but that's still cool too. It's cool to tell the story.
Absolutely. It's funny that we started off the show basically bashing the Grammys, and now we're like, these are the things the Grammy does right. So, good way to like bring it full circle. And Dave, I'm going to let you kind of lead off with this one because I didn't do too much research into this. What did you have down for like best stunts of the year, best stunt?
Yeah, this is there's a big groundswell, I guess, from media. I guess there's the famous Vulture article about we need a best stunts Oscar, and it keeps getting recirculated. But like, you think of like, I feel like there's not like a overwhelming amount of choices year to year, but there's always stuff that stands out. Like I thought Mission Impossible Fallout last year obviously blew people away once you learned about Tom Cruise's like dedication to doing all those stunts. And like when the Raid movies came out, like anything that's like martial arts space obviously is going to stand out. So I guess this year, John Wick 3 is kind of the obvious one because that's a ton of practical stunts. But I feel like we might just be nominating a lot of the franchise movies with this award. So I guess maybe it's, like I'm looking at like the SAG Awards, they do a best stunt ensemble award, but The Irishman was picked. The Joker was picked. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was picked. I mean, apart from the Bruce Lee fight with Brad Pitt, what other stunts are really in Once Upon a Time beyond like the ending fight?
Yeah, that was what came to mind.
Ford versus Ferrari, I guess. I mean, those are certainly stunts. They're stunts in cars.
Yeah.
So I guess Hobbs and Shaw counts in a certain regard too.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw came to mind for me for this. This would have been a better category to talk about last year, like you mentioned with Mission Impossible and a couple others. Something like The King comes to mind with those fight scenes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Really
swinging swords, battle
Yeah.
scenes. Yeah.
6 Underground, Triple Frontier have some pretty good stunts.
Yeah, 6 Underground. That's a good point. Michael Bay does certain things better than others, but stunts are in the good camp for him, no doubt. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and obviously like John Wick 3 probably.
Yeah,
would
that's
be
probably
the one that would win. Yeah, this year was actually a down year for it, which I'm kind of like taken aback by. Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw. I think a movie I've forgotten to add to my my list on Letterboxd, which I should go back and do, and follow us on there as well. Dave Martinson, Pat Sheen or whatever my name is on there. But anyways, yeah, I think John Wick is the one that runs away with it. Uncut Gems also might have some cool moments in it.
You think back like a movie that was recognized handily at the Oscars, like Mad Max Fury Road. Sometimes there's just stuff that like really kind of stands out. And I don't know, maybe like this could be a category that maybe only has 3 nominations some years. You know, like you don't have to force it. But again, like stunt performers and what goes into doing stunts is a really important and challenging aspect of filmmaking. So we should still be honoring it. And again, the Screen Actors Guild is already honoring this. So it's not like this is out of blue thought. But from what the industry insiders are saying, adding any of these categories is not like on the horizon. So like it's going to take some time for the Academy is more open to this kind of change. But I think these 3 in particular would definitely be the most valuable to the discussion and the record.
Yeah, how would you feel about movies like Star Wars or the Avengers, in Endgame getting nominated for something like that?
Right. I guess it depends how you write the award, because there's lots of stunts in those movies, but those are also movies that are made almost entirely on backlots, right? It's not to diminish what happens, but I think it depends how you write the letter. Like Ford versus Ferrari and Mission Impossible Fallout is just a different kind of stunt than Avengers Endgame is, or even Hobbs and Shaw. So
yeah,
I think it depends what we're trying to focus on. But like Endgame was nominated for Stunt Ensemble at the SAG too. Like it certainly counts.
No, I definitely agree. It's a tricky conversation to have, and like you said, it will kind of come down to the parameters of it. So, but yeah, John Wick for that one for sure. Any other categories you want to talk about?
No, those are the ones that really stood out to me. Just do Rookie of the Year for acting and directing.
Yeah,
you can keep it male and female. I think that's fine, given that it's not a overwhelming field any one year. But again, I think just adding to the record, adding to the story would be cool, and having an excuse to get younger people at the Oscar, especially with the whole like wait your turn aspect of awards, winning awards. Unfortunately, like Timothée Chalamet, it would be cool to see him on the Oscar stage, because we know like or Saoirse Ronan back when she was in Atonement or something. Like it's just cool to see like the minting. So it's just what I would like to see as a fan.
No, I agree. And like I said before, it's one of those things where they should be using the Oscars to build up these people and to drive fandom. So anyways, it's wrapping up there for us this week. What do we got next week, Dave?
Next week, we are doing our Oscar predictions. Some awards, pretty easy to forecast at this point. We're talking about it anyway. In terms of notable new things, BoJack Horseman, the last episodes for the show, the final batch of the last season comes out on Friday. Pat will be checking in on that in due time. The Assistant is coming out. This is the movie with Julia Garner. It's about Me Too. It's supposed to be pretty good. So we'll see. That's probably limited release. We'll talk about that eventually. And then music, there's some notable names: Kesha, Meghan Trainor, Russ, and Louis Tomlinson from One Direction. Not super excited about any of those. I guess Kesha's the most intrigued to me, but we'll talk about the Oscars. So
definitely
be ready for that.
We got some things to talk about. Stay tuned at Nowstalgia Pod, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere you want to follow us. We'll see you next week.